We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
23.
Hey, what is up, you guys? This is Steffi, aka My Humble Opinion, and welcome back to another IMHO Film Club movie review. In this video, we are going to be reviewing the highly anticipated movie, musical, rock in the desert, concert, drama, traumatic, low-key traumatic film entitled A Star is Born. So A Star is Born stars Lady Gaga, Bradley Cooper, Sam Elliott, Andrew Dice Clay, Anthony Ramos, and Dave Chappelle, among others. The movie was directed by Bradley Cooper, and if you guys didn't know, this is actually his directorial debut, so congrats, Bradley. And according to IMDb, the screenplay is also by Bradley Cooper, Eric Roth, and Will Fetters. So A Star is Born is basically about a famous seasoned singer named Jack, played by Bradley Cooper, who meets a unknown singer-songwriter named Allie, played by Lady Gaga. And Jack becomes very enamored by Allie, and he is so impressed with her natural ability for singing and songwriting that he decides to mentor her and take her under his wing. Eventually, of course, the two fall in love, and throughout the course of the movie, we see her star on the rise while his star is on the demise, and we see how their relationship is affected by the fact that these two people are at different points in their careers, and also by the fact that Bradley Cooper's character is dealing with a very serious addiction to drugs and alcohol. It's also important to note too that A Star is Born is actually a remake of A Star is Born. This is the fourth time that A Star is Born has been remade. The first iteration of A Star is Born actually came out in 1937, starring Janet Gaynor and Freddie March. The second version of A Star is Born came out in 1954, starring Judy Garland and James Mason. And the third iteration of A Star is Born came out in 1976, starring, of course, Barbra Streisand and Chris Christopherson. So, as in all movie reviews on this channel, I'm going to be talking about the pros, and then the cons, and then I'm going to be giving my overall rating. So let's just get into this. Also, before I begin, I just want to put it out right now, this is a movie review filled with spoilers, so if you haven't watched the movie yet, maybe put this video on pause. So my first pro of this movie is that it was beautifully and intimately directed and shot. By utilizing a lot of close-up shots and also this handheld shakiness, the movie felt as if you were watching a concert documentary. It felt so intimate and raw, and as if you were experiencing everything with these characters. From the moment that Bradley Cooper's character rushes into the car and we see the flashing lights of the paparazzi shining through the window, to Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga's characters performing in the desert, it just felt like we were experiencing all of this with them. And the shots of the desert were so beautiful. Job well done to the cinematographer of this movie. His name is Matthew Libatique. I personally hate the desert, so the fact that after watching this movie I was like, dang, I want to get on the back of the motorcycle and just go just kidding, no, but the fact that he was able to make the desert just look like this fantasy sweeping place. And additionally, I just thought that Bradley Cooper as a director was able to get really great performances obviously out of himself, but also out of Lady Gaga. So kudos to Bradley Cooper because this was his directorial debut. Alright, so my second pro of this movie are the performances, and I usually just lump all of this together, but I feel like Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper each deserve their own talking points, so my second pro to this movie is Lady Gaga. In this movie, I just felt she did such a great job. And granted, some people are gonna say, well, it's not such a far reach for a singer to portray a singer, but here's the thing. In the first hour of this movie, Lady Gaga is playing this person named Allie, and Allie is someone who isn't famous. In that first hour when she's trying to make sense of Jack's world, I just thought she was doing such a great job because in real life, she is the Bradley Cooper character. I just found it fascinating for her to be playing someone on the other side of it all, and she did such a believable job in doing that. One of my favorite scenes in this movie, and it was actually the scene that really moved me to the point where I was crying, and I usually don't cry at scenes like this, but it was when Allie went on stage with Jack for the first time, and she is singing her song, and she's kind of like, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening to me, and she does this thing where she buries her face in her hands because she's just so overwhelmed by what is happening to her. And I found that so moving. There's something about watching a person realizing their dreams in real time, and the overwhelmingness of that emotion and situation just really overpowering that person. And the way that Lady Gaga acted in that scene was just so sincere and genuine. And you know, of course, because we're already talking about Lady Gaga, I have to give kudos to her singing in this entire movie. A lot of these songs are very emotional, and you could really hear the raw emotion in the way that she was singing the song. So yeah, I just thought Lady Gaga did a great job in this movie. All right, my third part of this movie is Bradley Cooper. Oh my God. Woo! Bradley Cooper. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. His character, Jack, he's so likable and endearing. And from what I've heard about the other past iterations of A Star is Born, apparently that character isn't really likable or endearing, and he comes off as a bit of an ass. But in this movie, that character, Jack, he's someone that over the course of the movie you really grow to care for and have great empathy for and compassion for. The fact that he is such a likable and endearing character is kind of what makes what happens to him at the end of the movie really, really depressing. And what I loved about the way Bradley Cooper portrayed Jack is you can really see the progression of the addiction and how it really begins to take its toll on Jack. In the scenes when Jack is just drunk off his mind and when Jack is actually like cognizant and present, the giveaway in his state of being was always by his eyes. And additionally, the moment when Jack makes a decision of, okay, I'm going to commit suicide, you can see a switch go off mentally in his character. And again, it's all seen through here in his eyes. And for me personally, I interpreted that moment to be when Allie's manager goes to talk to Jack, and then Jack is laying down in bed with Allie. You actually don't really even see Allie for a good portion of the scene when they're lying in bed. It's all a close-up on Jack's face and on his eyes. So yeah, Bradley Cooper, use those eyes. All right, my fourth pro to this movie was the chemistry between Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. Oh my God, wow. You really fall in love with these two characters as a couple. And the fact that you really get to see these two characters meet and fall in love is just very like, oh, moving, and it has you in your feelings. Especially in that first half of the movie, you can really see that there is such a genuine care and affection that these two characters have for one another, which is what makes the second hour of this movie so devastating to watch. Because in the first hour, it's Jack and Allie in their own desert world, playing the music, traveling from show to show, just loving and being with one another. And then in the second hour of the movie, once Allie's star begins to rise and her own career starts to take off and Jack's addiction just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, you see how a lot of things start to tear these two people apart, and they don't really get to share as many intimate moments as they did in the first hour of the movie. But despite all of that, in the moments when they do get to be together with one another, there is such a great intimacy and bond that these two characters share. My favorite parts about watching this couple's love story in the movie was like the details. The way that Jack looks at Allie and how he is so enamored with the shape of her nose. In the scene when they are riding on the motorcycle together and he's like touching her boob, you're just like, oh my God. All right, my fifth pro to this movie is the portrayal of what it looks like to be in a relationship with an addict. I personally think that in a lot of movies and television shows, this kind of story tends to be romanticized, but in this particular movie, it just showed how painful it is for the people involved in that relationship. The most prominent scene that showed how difficult it is to be in a relationship with an addict was the whole Grammy sequence when Allie is just trying so hard to keep some level of dignity for her and her husband, and she is thanking her husband while Jack is just wandering around the stage. And then when he pees himself and Allie covers him with her dress, it's just so, oh my God, that scene was so hard to watch. It was so heartbreaking. I think it also just goes to show how much Allie as a person loves her husband. Her character easily could have been angry at Jack right then and there and like thrown him under the bus and left him. But she was someone who was still trying to cover him up, like literally cover him up during that scene. A couple scenes later when Jack is apologizing for Allie about what happened at the Grammys, like that is so hard to watch because there's such a level of vulnerability and raw honesty that has to take place in those types of scenes. So I felt like that was a really great moment in the story as well. You really see Jack battling with the ups and downs that come with addiction. And there are some days where he is fine and there's other days where he really relies heavily on the alcohol or the drugs to keep him going. Alright, my sixth pro to this movie is the way that they handled Jack's suicide. It's really interesting too because when Jack's character is introduced to us and he's in the car, there's a moment where he looks out the window and up at a billboard and then he kind of looks back, and in the background you see like this poster. I think it might have been for some sort of Trevor campaign, like It Gets Better sort of thing, but it was like a rainbow poster and there were multiple nooses on the poster, and I thought that was an interesting way of foreshadowing what Jack was eventually going to do at the end of the movie. I felt like the way that they handled Jack's suicide was handled in a very sensitive manner, which I appreciated. I liked that we didn't see how, in fact, he did it. Just the way that they showed Jack getting things taken care of for the final time, making sure that the dog had food, putting his cowboy hat down for the final time. And I just thought that was such a really great, subtle way of showing what was going to happen because we've seen his character in a cowboy hat for like a majority of the movie. So for him to finally put that cowboy hat down for the final time was really effectively done. And then just a faraway shot of the dog sitting and waiting in front of the garage and just these red and blue lights blinking. That was pretty much all we needed to see in terms of Jack's suicide. So I like that, you know, unlike 13 Reasons Why that showed shot for shot how she did it. I like how that was just handled in a very sensitive way. Alright, my 7th pro of this movie, speaking of the dog, is the dog. Oh my god, I just thought that dog is so cute. I believe that's Bradley Cooper's dog actually in real life, and his name is Charlie. And the scenes with Bradley Cooper and the dog specifically playing in the backyard like had me dying. So yeah, shout out to the dog. And my final pro to this movie is the title card. I thought the title card was so stunning, and I love how as the title card was revealing itself, Lady Gaga was singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which is obviously an homage to Judy Garland, who of course was in A Star Is Born. It was just great. The minute I saw that title card, I was like, Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga are not fucking around. So great title card. Alright, so my first con of this movie is the pacing and length. So in terms of pacing, I felt like the beginning of the movie, everything was happening so fast, which I guess in a way makes sense because it's a bit of a whirlwind that Lady Gaga's character is being swept into the world of Jack's entertainment, music, singing, business world. So I could kind of excuse that, but then by the second hour, I did feel like there were moments when it dragged, and that kind of perfectly segues into the length of this film in terms of it being like 2 hours and 15 minutes, I believe. That is really long. Even though I enjoyed watching this film, I felt you could have easily cut out 30 minutes from this film so it wouldn't drag as much as it did. Alright, so my second con to this movie is I didn't necessarily buy into Allie now suddenly being a star. The thing is, it's like they had the right steps to show that. Suddenly Allie gets approached by the manager, and now she has backup dancers. Now she has a brand new wig. There's her billboard, and she's now performing at Saturday Night Live, and now she won the Best New Artist Grammy. Like, they had all of those steps, but in spite of all of that, I still didn't necessarily buy into the fact that now this person, Allie, is like a huge mega star. I don't know if it's because Allie was still very much isolated from her fame in terms of it was always her and Jack just living in that house together, and we never really saw like paparazzi following her around, or we never saw a new social circle trying to get into Allie's camp. I don't know if it was missing those elements, but when her narrative arc started to take this turn of Allie is now becoming a star and now she's a big superstar, it was like, really? Her? Alright, my third con to this movie is, in spite of the title of this movie being called A Star is Born, I definitely felt like it had more of a focus towards Bradley Cooper's character, which I was like, this is a little bit misleading. And for me, like, that really started again to take place more so in the second hour versus the first hour, because in the first hour, I felt like it was very much equal parts her story and his story, and I did feel a little bit there was more of a focus on her in the first hour. But then again, kind of like what I was saying earlier, when her narrative arc became now her star is on the rise, I felt like the focus wasn't on her as much as I would have liked it to have been, or maybe it was really because Bradley Cooper's story was just being told more convincingly and it was more interesting for me personally to watch. When I was listening to a review of the Barbra Streisand version of A Star is Born, Barbra Streisand, she directed that movie, and I heard like there was more of a focus on her character versus her male counterpart in that. And again, that makes sense because the movie is called A Star is Born, so focusing on Barbara. Not to say Bradley Cooper, since he's the one that directed it, was being selfish or anything like that. I don't think that's what was happening, but maybe unconsciously the narrative focus became more about his character, potentially because he was the one directing it. Because for me, I personally felt that Bradley Cooper's narrative arc in the second hour was more the crux of the story, and it was really like the heart of the story. And if anything, I felt like Lady Gaga's character, Ally, in that second hour, especially in that last half hour, was serving more of a purpose in Bradley's narrative arc. Alright, my fourth con to this movie is, personally, I felt a bit shortchanged in terms of a particular scene that I wish we would have gotten, and that is, I wish we would have seen or gotten hints of Ally's reaction upon first finding out that Jack had committed suicide. The movie got us emotionally invested in these two as a couple. We saw the first moment when they meet each other for the very first time. We saw the story of them falling in love with one another, and we just saw all the nitty-gritty details of that relationship, the ups and the downs. And for me, Jack's suicide and her finding out for the very first time what had happened to him is an essential part of this couple's story. For me personally, I felt like we were robbed of that and we deserved to see that moment. It would have definitely been devastating and hard to watch, but I still think in terms of telling the story of this couple, that is a very important element of their story. I wish we would have gotten that scene. Even if it wasn't necessarily, we see like the whole conversation of them telling Ally, this is what happened. Like if they would have just showed police officers coming into Ally's dressing room, Ally being confused, and then right as the camera's about to enter the room, the door shuts, like that's all we needed. I just wanted some insinuation of, okay, Ally is about to find out right now what has happened to Jack. All right, this is the scariest con that I have. Honestly, I'm a little nervous to say this because I don't want the Lady Gaga fans to attack me. No offense to her, I think she's a phenomenal, very talented artist. But I will say, quick disclaimer, I'm a really, really huge Whitney Houston fan. Like, I love Whitney Houston. Prior to watching this movie, I did hear that there was a song that was going to be performed at the very end of this movie by Lady Gaga, and this was supposed to be like Lady Gaga's I Will Always Love You. I'm referring to I'll Never Love Again. As the song started, I thought it was really pretty, but then there's something that happens in the song where it's suddenly, I'm not a music critic or anything, so I don't know how to articulate this in the correct technical form, but this song suddenly starts sounding very, very similar to a ballad that would have come out of the 90s. I think what for me irks me the most is this song didn't sound like any of the other songs that we had listened to throughout the duration of this movie. Again, I'm a huge Whitney stan, and in my personal opinion, I just feel like this song sounds like it's trying so hard to be like an I Will Always Love You at the end of the movie. Just my personal opinion, but what I will say, you know which song I really, really loved and I wish was actually in the movie and wasn't just end credit song? Is That Alright? It sounds like it's in the same family as the other songs we heard throughout this entire movie. I wish Is That Alright would have played a larger role in the actual movie itself, but yeah, in my personal opinion, as a Whitney stan, I'll Never Love Again is just not I Will Always Love You. Alright, so my overall rating for this movie, I am going to give it a solid solid A-. I know a lot of people tend to eye roll whenever there is a new Hollywood movie about the entertainment business or show business and how difficult it is for these entertainers trying to achieve their dreams. And while those kinds of stories may be oversold to the general public, and why this definitely isn't the most original story considering that this is the 4th time that this movie has been remade, what sets this movie apart is the performances of Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, and how real these characters felt, and how much you genuinely as an audience member grew to have a lot of compassion and empathy for these characters as you saw them struggling to navigate show business. This movie does a really great job with just showing the general pitfalls that one may face when working in the entertainment industry, whether it's addiction issues or trying to stay true to who you are and what you have to say as an artist. And alright, that's about it for this video. If you liked it, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and please turn on the notification button down below so you know when a new video from me comes out. And comment down below your thoughts on A Star Is Born. What was your favorite song of this movie? For me, like I said, I love Is That Alright? Is That Alright is just that song for me. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on the movie and your thoughts on the soundtrack. As always, everything I said was just my own personal thoughts and all my humble opinion, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!